Hi everybody. Today we are going to talk about factoring trinomials. Now in the previous video, right, we've been looking at factoring out GCFs, factoring by grouping, which required 4 terms. When we're factoring trinomials, we're just going to have 3 terms. Okay, so something you need to know right off the bat here is what standard form is going to look like. Okay. We have 3 terms, and notice it goes x squared, then x, then we have our constant at the end. Well, the number in front of x squared, we're going to say is our a value. The number in front of x is our b value, and then that constant at the end is our c value. And that's going to come into play when we factor trinomials here in just a minute. Now, before we do that, I want to show you what we were doing last chapter. Okay, last chapter, binomials together. Okay, like x plus 2 times x plus 5, we were using that FOIL strategy, where we would do x times x to get x squared, x times 5 to get plus 5x, 2 times x to get a plus 2x, and 2 times 5 to get a plus 10. Now, I want you to notice that we have 4 terms here. Okay, and we've been looking at factoring things with 4 terms. So there's going to be a connection here. But typically what we did after this was we looked for like terms, noticed that we could combine those middle terms together to create x squared plus 7x plus 10. A trinomial with an a value of 1, a b value of 7, and a c value. So we're going to look at how we can factor things like this. So really, instead of multiplying together to get x squared plus 7x plus 10, we are going to factor so that we can go from something like this trinomial back up into the factored form like we had up here. So let's talk about how we can do that. Now, we're really foiling in reverse. So instead of, combining those middle terms to get our trinomial at the end, we need to figure out how are we going to split our middle term into 2 parts so that we get a total of 4 terms, which will allow us to factor by grouping. So to do that, you're going to have to pay attention to what is my a value, my b value, and my c value. Okay, we have a little organizer that we're going to use. Okay, just make an x. We're going to put an m up here and a down here. We need to find 2 numbers that multiply to a times c. Okay, a times c here would be 1 times 16. So we need to find 2 numbers that multiply to 16 and add together to give us our b value of 10. The 2 numbers that I find that multiply to positive 16 and also add to 10 are the 2 numbers that I will use to split my negative 10x into 2 parts. Now, if I need to multiply to get a positive number and add to get a negative number, then both of my numbers are going to be negative. Negative 2 times negative 8 will make a positive 16. Negative 2 plus negative 8 will add to negative 10. So we are going to split negative 10x into negative 2x and a negative 8x. Okay, the x squared that we had originally is still there. The 16 that we had originally is still there. But now we have 4 terms, and we can factor by grouping. So I'm going to group. Okay, make sure it's addition in the middle. Factor out our GCFs. So in the first group, it's x. We're left with x minus 2. And our second group, the GCF is negative 8. We factor it out. So remember, you're dividing what's inside by negative 8. And we get x minus 2. So it's really just factoring by grouping like we've been doing. Okay, so now we know I can factor x minus 2 out of my entire expression here, which will leave me with x minus 8. And this is the factored form of our original trinomial. And remember, you can always check by just multiplying this back together, FOIL it, and make sure it matches your original expression. So let's see another one here. Okay, again, we need to figure out how we're going to split up 17x into 2 parts. So we need to find the 2 numbers that multiply to whatever a times c is. So 6 times 5 is going to be 30. And add to that middle number, the b value, 17. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to 30, add to 17, that's going to be 2 and 15, right? They multiply to 30, they add to 17. So that's how we're splitting up our 17x. Okay, we're going to split it into 2x plus 15x. So the 6x squared that was there originally just drops down. The 5 at the end drops down. We've got our 5 terms. We're going to group, factor out the GCFs. So in our first group, that would be 2x. That will leave us with 3x plus 1. In our second group, the GCF will be 5. When we factor it out, it's going to leave us again with a 3x plus 1. If we factor 3x plus 1 out of our entire expression here, we're going to get 2x plus 5 left over, and that is going to be our final factored form. Again, if you're not sure if you're correct, FOIL it, multiply it back together, and make sure it matches your original trinomial. Okay, last example here. Find two numbers that multiply to -8 and add together to make a 7. Okay, well, if I'm multiplying to get a negative, one of my numbers will be positive, the other will be negative. Okay, the bigger of them will be positive since they add to make a positive. So my two numbers are going to be 1 and 8. Okay, they multiply to -8, they add to 7. So those are the numbers that we're using to split 7y into two parts. Drop our 4y squared down, drop our -2 down, group, and factor out the GCFs. So we can see here that we have a common binomial of 4y minus 1. When we factor that out, we're going to be left with y plus 2. And we have our final factored form. So this is going to take you a lot of practice. Okay, the goal here is really to split our trinomial up into 4 terms, okay, so that we can factor by grouping. And we're going to uncombine or split up that middle term by finding two numbers that multiply to your a times c value and add up to that middle b value. Okay, and like I said, after we split it up into 4 terms, we're going to be factoring by grouping, which we've been working on the past few days. So that is it for this video. Have a great rest of your day.